Hey guys, welcome back to the lineup.
Welcome back, everyone. We got a great episode planned for you today. But before we get into it, I know Ben just made a big switch with Open Mind Gym. So do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I recently just merged with the Hidden Opponent, another organization fighting for student athlete mental health. Victoria Garrick and I will kind of be running the show now, operating under the Hidden Opponent name. The Open Mind Gym brand will technically no longer be here, but our mission and our purpose is still going to be the same, running under the name The Hidden Opponent. So just to remind you guys to follow that on Instagram, Facebook, and whatnot to help us get started and growing it together. But today we have on University of Tulsa football player Chris Paul, not to be mistaken with NBA player Chris Paul. But, he's a guy, he's a standout guy, stand up guy at the university. He's done a lot for mental health there. He did a story for us with Open Mind Gym. So we're going to hear a little bit about his journey and what he's doing to advocate for athlete mental health. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are y'all?
Doing well. Welcome to the show here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, how's everything? How's finals going? I know we're in a tough time right now with the coronavirus. You want to explain a little bit about how you're going about life right now?
Okay, so finals are going well for the most part. I'm still adjusting to the online aspect of it, something that a lot of people aren't really used to. But it's going well so far.
That's good. We can jump right into it here. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about your athletic career? Where you're at playing football, maybe how you grew up and where you're at now?
Okay, so I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Um, Sports has always been a part of my life. Growing up in kindergarten through grade school, I would say I played soccer and little league basketball and things like that. But when I got into middle school, I started to play football. But even then, it wasn't really something that I would say I was extremely passionate about. But getting into high school, I decided to keep going, and I was kind of doubted at first in terms of athletic ability through freshman and sophomore year. And sometimes I would look to my peers and wonder why I wasn't able to be where they were at, or why I wasn't quite there athletically. But going into my junior year, when I finally made the varsity squad, I began to acquire a lot of athletic scholarship, which boosted my confidence in a way, like to say that showing up to football and showing up to work every day to accomplish what I was being told to accomplish, I was starting to see the fruits of my labor. I was starting to see things come into fruition. So that gave me an extra confidence boost to not get discouraged and to keep going on the right track. And oddly enough, I was the only person in my class when it came time to sign to a Division 1 institution. And so it was very much a blessing, and I've been going ever since. And in the fall of 2018, I started as a redshirt freshman and began my collegiate career.
That's great. So do you have any siblings that played sports too? Do you guys? I noticed on Twitter. I noticed that you might have had a brother at the University of Houston. Is that correct?
Yes, my little brother does play at the University of Houston, an offensive lineman, and is a left tackle. And I have an older brother that plays football as well at Northeastern State.
Oh wow, so it's a big football family. Did your brothers kind of get you into football, or did your family like how would you get into the sport? My brother and I play on the same team, so we kind of push each other.
For some reason, we are naturally big, and so I don't know if we necessarily pushed each other into the sport, but it was just one of those things where um, your coaches would see you in school and decide for you that you were going to.
So, how's your time at Tulsa been? How's that going for you?
Oh, it's been one of the best experiences of my life. I enjoy every bit of it. Enjoyed getting to branch out and really like foster a holistic college experience, not compartmentalize myself. If there's anything else outside of football that I'm interested in, I make sure to check it out and get plugged in. And it's just really made for a great experience.
That's great to hear. I noticed that I interviewed you recently for Open Mind Gym. We recently just merged with the Hidden Opponent, so all your interview will be on the Hidden Opponent website. But most of the time we'll interview people who have like a direct mental health story that, impacted their playing career. But we also feel like it's important to have people on here who are leaders at their school and, showing that, mental health is important for everybody. Just because, quote unquote, you don't have a mental illness per se doesn't mean that it's not important and it's not an issue that everybody should talk about. So do you want to talk a little bit about your leadership at your school and what you're doing on campus to make that change?
Yes. So I am the vice president of our student athlete advisory committee here at the University of Tulsa, and I also serve as the coordinator of community engagement for the American Athletic Conference, SAC. And so one of the things that we've done conference wide is we've started an initiative called Powerful Minds. And so this initiative is geared towards ending the stigma surrounding mental health and normalizing it, because it is something that a lot of people experience, and you shouldn't feel ashamed or embarrassed for going through something that is natural. And so how we are normalizing mental health and ending the stigma is just making people more aware of the issue. And so, as I mentioned in the interview, one of the things we do to do that is we wear the color green for which signifies mental health awareness. And so we wear the color green for a specific week in the fall and the spring during our athletic competitions. And so even a tiny gesture like that makes people question, well, why is the team wearing green? That's probably not in their color scheme, light green at that. It makes people ask questions, which in turn gives you the opportunity to explain and make people more aware about the issue.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think education is a huge part, and certainly awareness, like you mentioned, just, even if people don't understand, just seeing that color green is so huge to draw awareness to the whole issue. So why do you think it is so hard for athletes to come out and share their story, and specifically male athletes? I feel like it's always a common theme that it's a little harder for male athletes to share their story. Why do you think that is?
And so athletes in general were typically involved in competitive environments. That's just what we're around. So when you're constantly in environments like that, showing any kind of vulnerability, even through emotional weakness, is usually something that it's not welcomed, which is wrong. And so when you pair that up with men and the idea of masculinity and not being able to show any kind of emotional vulnerability, regardless of the context, that becomes a huge problem, because society often teaches us as men to thug it out or uh, just move on with it, and we aren't really given the opportunity to process information and to seek help when necessary, because there's a stigma around men not being able to show emotional vulnerability.
Yeah, it's very true, especially in sports locker rooms. Most guys are told, you got to be tough, you got to tough it out. So, what's the environment like at your school and your football program? How's everybody dealing with the mental health stigma? How have you been able to bring that onto your football team?
And so, being that we're part of the American Athletic Conference, so the conference initiatives that pushing out spreads obviously to the entire conference. So I would say that my team is very well aware about stigma surrounding mental health, and we know we know not to keep employing that stigma. So, as I mentioned, during the fall 2019 football season, during Powerful Minds Week, we had a green patch on the back of our helmets. So did everyone in the conference, and our coaches and myself as well did a good job of explaining um, what it was about and making the team more aware of the issue. And I also had the privilege of being able to give a message during our Powerful Minds game that they played over the Jumbotron in the stadium during the game, which in turn made the entire fan base more aware of the issue. And it was also posted on social media. And so um, there obviously is always more that can be done, and that's across the board. But I do believe we are taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like Tulsa and you yourself are doing a great job of kind of changing that culture and making a change. So my question is, football kind of being that stereotypical masculine sport, you talked a little bit about being tough and extreme masculinity. How have you seen that kind of play out? It sounds like Tulsa's done a pretty good job, but you know, when we talk about like professional athletes coming out and sharing their story, we hear a lot about, NBA players and some MLB players and stuff like that, but you don't really hear too much about NFL players coming out yet. So do you think there's kind of a correlation between football and kind of that extreme masculinity and tying it to mental health?
I do believe that a lot of people would argue that football is one of, if not the most physical sports. And so the entire sport revolves around toughness and just getting on with it and just showing up and doing what you have to do, and it really doesn't go much beyond that. So in the realm of football, I would say a lot more needs to be done in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of sports, there's a lot of athletes talking about it. So that's a great point by Derek. But do you think if meaningful education was pushed on coaches and athletes within like NCAA programs, we would see a significant change in these struggles and a significant change in how people talk about mental health?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that coaches, athletic staff as a whole, need to go through some type of training or some type of seminars, or be required to sit in on some type of meetings pertaining to mental health and the awareness surrounding mental health. Because one of the things that I can say from personal experience is that being that you're a student athlete, things that come from your coach often mean a lot more than things that can come from anybody else. Because if you think about it, like technically your coach would be like your boss, or I don't know how else to articulate that, but it's very important when it comes from your coach. So, for example, if I hear about something on campus that maybe, I'm highly encouraged to come to, but if I don't feel like I have the time, or if I don't really feel like it, I might not give it that much thought. Whereas if my coach tells me, "Hey, Chris, you need to be at this place, A, B, and C time," it's gonna be that much more important to me, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm there. So imagine the impact of coaches making sure that they push this kind of awareness onto their players at a required football meeting, or something at the beginning of the year. It would be that much more impactful.
Yeah, so I think education is a huge thing, and that's certainly something that I think is changing. And there's obviously more that needs to be done, but I think that's kind of the biggest next step in the process. Do you think there's any other ways that we could make a change in society and mental health? Whether it's the perception or education, or what are some other ways you think we can kind of change that stigma?
So obviously, we can do more with within our communities to spread the awareness of mental health. But one of the things I would say is we need to be reaching out to people close to us and speaking out against things that you know are inherently wrong. Even with the entire pandemic that's going on, one of the things that I keep telling people around me and that I keep doing myself is just sending a text or checking on those that are closest to you. This is really a time that is unprecedented for a lot of people, and so even the kindest gesture of just reaching out and checking on somebody can be a life changing decision, a life altering decision.
Yeah, it's really important to check up on your family, friends, teammates, and whatnot, just to, let them know how they're doing. Ask them, be upfront with people, because a lot of times when people are struggling, it really does help for people to check in on you. I know that when I was going through my own situation, I just hoped that somebody would, check in on me, ask me how I was doing, whether it was my friends, family, whoever it was, just so they could just know. And then at that moment, it's a lot easier for that person to open up because I feel more connected with that person. And going back to your last point with your coaches, I think that's very important as well. At my own college, our coach, whenever we have a meeting about something important, he sends a message out like, "Hey guys, you guys should be there at this time. It's very important," and that creates a more powerful reason to go to that. And rather than myself saying, "Hey guys, we got this event, we should go," when the coach is proactive with it, it really makes an impact on all the athletes.
Absolutely.
So I got one more question for you, Chris. What advice would you maybe give to someone out there who's struggling and maybe hasn't shared their story yet, doesn't really know what to do? What advice would you give to someone from your experience that you've had?
So I would say reach out to the resources that are available on campus. Although a lot more can be done in regards to the issue, I can say that most universities and most colleges, most educational institutions are uh, becoming more aware of the issue, and in doing so, they're creating more resources for their students. And so it can be something as simple as type in Google mental health and then the name of your university. And most likely something will pop up that will point you in the right direction of resources to look for. And also, I would say reach out to other student athletes, maybe ones that you feel are leaders on campus or ones that preside or lead your student athlete advisory committee, as every institution in the NCAA should have one, and reach out to those students to point you in the right direction, because oftentimes it's understandable why student athletes may feel reluctant to go to someone like an advisor or someone in a high position of power. You may want someone more relatable to you, and that's fine. That's okay. So reach out to those individuals.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, it's one thing to kind of talk to a doctor or talk to an administrator, but it's another thing to hear it from other student athletes who are going through the same thing as you. And, that's a great point that you bring up there.
Yep. Well, we really enjoyed your time, Chris. This was a great interview. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing our Q&A on our website. And yeah, I hope to talk to you soon, man.
No, thank you so much for having me.
And that was Chris Paul from the University of Tulsa.
Yeah, Chris was awesome. It's really great to see someone like that really make a change at their school and, in their conference in general. And we really look forward to continuing to watch his success.
Yeah, we had Chris on here to emphasize the importance of mental health being a 5-and-5 issue, something that everybody should talk about, whether you quote unquote are diagnosed with a mental illness or not. And, mental health is on a spectrum. It's something that we all have to keep in mind when going through our daily routines. And yeah, Chris was awesome. I really enjoyed his podcast. But, be on the lookout for next week. We got some exciting things coming up. So stay tuned. Bye, guys.